Thanks, Joanne, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning still to our Western friends. My name is Isabelle Fauché. I'm the Managing Director of Carton Council Canada. For those of you who don't know us, we are an industry organization formed to grow the recycling of food and beverage cartons, which are your milk cartons, your juice boxes, your soup broth cartons, etc. So it's my pleasure to be hosting this session today. We have three speakers, and I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, who is actually not going to be present with us, but has pre-recorded her session. And then I will pause for any, I guess, questions not directly addressed to the presenter, to Lori, but if there's just some comments that folks want to make, and then we'll segue into our second and third speakers. So Lori Koebel is the Manager of Communications and Marketing for the Alberta Beverage Container Management Corporation, or ABCRC for short. She's responsible for developing programs that encourage Albertans to engage in recycling their empty beverage containers. Lori continually seeks to find new ways to foster engagement in recycling to help the industry grow beyond its 85% return rate. So I will now pass it over to Joanne to bring up Lori's presentation.
Well, hello everyone from Calgary. It's great to connect. Welcome to my office. It is always this clean. I get teased about it all the time. My name is Lori, and I'll properly introduce myself in a little bit here. But it's just, it's great to connect. And I wanted to say thank you to the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council for inviting me today. I think these new types of online conferences where we can connect and be online together are so innovative, and I think this is really great for just everybody to be able to participate in these kinds of conferences still among what we're going through right now. So I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. My family and I are likely paddleboarding down the Milk River right now, hopefully anyway. I did teach my 90-pound dog to paddleboard with me, who sits on my paddleboard. So if he sees a rabbit or something, we're going for a swim. But other than that, we should be having a good time. So I pre-recorded this for everybody, and I hope you enjoy it. I will include my contact information at the end so that we can hopefully connect. If you have questions, I'd be happy to hear from you. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, hopefully, and we'll see if this works. And I'll go through a few slides that I put together for everybody on our public engagement session here. So here's hoping this works. Okay, good news, it worked. So here we are. The session we've got, like I said, is the public education and engagement. So I put together a presentation that I call 3 critical concepts for recycling education. I've titled the presentation this, I'm going to be honest, mostly to catch your attention, but also, and hopefully pique your curiosity, but also these are what I believe to be the critical concepts of recycling and education. There's more for sure. To be honest, there's more concepts to increase engagement, but these are just the ones that I felt worthy of a critical category in terms of the programs and campaigns that we run here at ABCRC. So a bit of an overview here. Like I said, I'll do a little intro to myself, the presenter. I'll talk about social marketing 101. Talk a little bit about audience discovery. I'll go into the 3 critical concepts, so I still haven't put them on the overview slide, super sneaky. Tips for successful campaigns, and the thank you, and like I said, my information is at the end here, so hopefully we can connect. Okay, meet the presenter. Like I said, my name is Lori Koebel. I am the Manager of Communications and Marketing here at ABCRC. Alberta Beverage Container Recycling Corporation. It's a mouthful. So I've spent time in several different industries, including technology, oil and gas. And the great thing I find about communications and marketing is you can plunk into any industry and learn about it, and then apply those skills in communications and marketing to that particular industry. I'm a curious lifelong learner by nature. And I feel incredibly fortunate to now in this position be able to combine my experience and background with a personal passion for the sustainability and the environment. So this role has really been great. I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I really enjoy the work that we do here at ABCRC. And although I'm speaking here at ABCRC about for our programs, I'm also the Vice President at the Recycling Council of Alberta. So work there and spend lots of time with the great folks over there working to promote and advocate for the circular economy. So sustainability and circular economy, they're all very, very important to me and as a passion. Okay, about ABCRC. So for those that don't know, we're operated under not-for-profit provisions as the agent for beverage manufacturers in Alberta. And we are the agent that collects, transports, and processes containers collected from Alberta depots. So there's 220 independently owned bottle depots in Alberta, and we collect the beverage containers from them. The depots refund the deposits to the consumer, and then ABCRC collects, processes, and transports all of those containers. We oversee the collection of, it's about 150,000 different types of regulated non-refillable beverage containers sold in Alberta, and strive to continuously improve the return rates on our beverage containers while promoting the environmental, economic, social benefits of recycling. So what does that mean? I'll go into that as we go along here what some of our programs are. And if you have more questions, you can certainly either check out our website or ask me, but I'm directly responsible for encouraging Albertans to engage in recycling their empty beverage containers, hence why I'm here today. My team and I continually work on just finding new programs and new ways to foster engagement. Maybe there, it's some sort of new innovative idea that we've come up when we think, yeah, that, that might get more people to bring their containers back to a depot. In 2019, specifically, our return rate was about 85%, which is great. That's really high. And that also amounts to about 2 billion containers. So there's a lot of containers coming through our plants, a lot of processing going on. Okay, social marketing. I wanted to talk about social marketing 101 and about what changing behaviors mean. So there's regular marketing where we're trying to sell a product to someone. And I've done that kind of a role before in past lives, where you're selling a product, you're competing in a market with other companies, trying to sell the product and tell them why their product is better than the others and why you should go with that one. And then there's this kind of marketing where I call it social marketing, and this is where my job gets really interesting and where I like it. And it makes it challenging, but challenging in a really fun way, is because we're trying to change the behaviors of someone. We're actually trying to influence people to do something and take a beverage container to a depot. Okay, so how do you do that, right? And I'm trying to get someone to do something that they don't want to do. For those of you who are like myself and have young teenagers at home, or maybe even some marriages, when someone doesn't want to do something, it's pretty hard to convince them to do it otherwise. So it definitely, you have to be innovative. You have to think of different ways to do this. Social marketers and academics have kind of recognized that solutions to social problems often require attention to changing environmental challenges that are keeping that person from doing what you want them to do, if that makes any sense. I'll go into this in a few more minutes, but so they say you should pay attention to the environmental challenges that make desired behaviors potentially harder to carry out. And this is kind of my third critical concept that I'm going to get into in the presentation a little bit more, because I'm getting ahead of myself. But we're actually trying to alleviate those environmental factors and get someone to do something. Okay, so an audience discovery. This is something that I always do when I start a new campaign. As a social marketer, the first thing you really want to do is take a look at your audience that you're trying to engage with. And in our case at ABCRC, it really helped to better understand what drives current customers to bond with the depot brand specifically, and to better understand how customers characterize their relationship with the depot and their support of the recycling movement in Alberta, and how to connect those two opportunities together. And so I usually categorize these into two different ones. We have kind of a predominant audience and then an opportunity audience. So you got your predominant audience. These are people who they're already going to the depot. They know they pay a deposit and they want their refund back. Mostly that is the reason that they're doing it. And they're really just, they just want their dime or their quarter back. But the opportunity, they may know about it and they might not go to the depot. They may or may not. They may even be, say, a new student just recently out of mom and dad's house where, I knew these containers went somewhere, but I just kind of don't have the infrastructure in place or just haven't gotten into the habit of going to the depot. And often you'll find in that kind of a persona or that kind of an audience, they will have a bit of a more of an understanding of the environment and a more desire to be part of a community and part of ensuring that the community is doing the right thing. And so this way you can tailor your communications to these types of audiences and know who you're speaking to and know how to kind of, help to change their behaviors in order to go to the depot. Because at the end of the day, like I said before, my mandate is to ensure that people are recycling as many containers as possible and getting them all back to the depot. And so the point here that I wanted to make on this slide is that knowing the audience that you are working with is very, very critical. And what we've done here at ABCRC are several market studies. We've done surveys and you can start to collect a pretty good data set that gives you an idea of how people are thinking, how people are feeling, and how you might be able to craft programs or messaging that would better enable them to recycle their beverage containers. Okay. Critical concept number one. Here's the big reveal. I feel like I should do a drum roll. It's establish the habit early. So what do I mean by that? For instance, the EBCRC school recycling program. So it encourages ongoing participation in beverage container recycling by Alberta's youth. We provide schools with bins, teaching aids that are compatible with the 4th grade recycling curriculum. And so what that means is that in grade 4 in Alberta, our students learn about the waste in our world. And so what we'll do is we have a presentation that's all prepared, and we have all, like I say, teaching aids and games and prizes, and we either come into the classroom and do a live presentation, or we also have an online version on YouTube so that we could send the teachers to the YouTube clip, and then they could play that in their class for their students, and have kind of a out of the box teaching experience to teach their kids about beverage container recycling in Alberta. What this does is kind of foster those lifelong habits that we really want people to establish. We really want the kids to establish early, because it means that you're creating a generation of recyclers who understand about beverage container recycling. They know that they should go to a depot in Alberta and take their containers there. They know what happens to those containers, and they know what those containers can turn into, and the value that those containers hold. And so by doing that, we're really establishing those lifelong habits to recycle beverage containers. We created some fun robot characters, so I've included them here on the screen. I've got them, I think you can see my mouse hopefully when I'm moving there. And they each represent a beverage container material stream to teach the kids about how those beverage containers are recycled and turned into new products. So for example, this is Hydro here in the middle, and I've got a clip with him on the next slide. I'll show you on a quick little video. And he's got like a hydro pulp right on board here, right on his midsection. That's, he's eating the Tetra Paks and hydro pulping them and spitting out paper products. And the kids love it. They eat this stuff up. And it's also really easy for us as the marketers and then the program developers to develop the characters and to develop materials. And we've got comic books, we've got stuffed animals, we've got all kinds of some swag that I'll show you here on the next slide. I'll go to the next slide. Water bottles, hats, bags. This is the teaching materials, and so inside of each container we actually have like flakes of PET or HDPE pellets. We've got some glass cullet that they can take a look at, and they can move it around in the container and see what it looks like, and they have to play a game where they hide those all over the room, and then they have to try to match the material with that particular beverage container stream. So it's kind of cool. This is just a quick little video. I hope it works. I'm going to click on it, and if it doesn't work, we'll just keep going on of our school video, and it kind of introduces the characters to the kids, and the teachers just absolutely love these, because first of all, they get to play a 15-minute for their teaching video for their kids. They can sit down for a minute, and also it's quite informative, and we've had some really great feedback on it, so I hope you like it too.
More than anything else are used milk cartons and juice boxes. Hydro has another name for these beverage containers. He calls them Tetra Paks. Tetra Pak. That must be recycled off for delicious. After Hydro eats the Tetra Paks, they go to his spinning midsection, which is kind of like a big washing machine. Yeah, if washing machines were located in the tummy of a giant robotic beef guy. The process of mixing the Tetra Paks with water and spinning them all around really quickly separates the paper, and it floats out to the top of the water. This is called hydropulping, but it gets recycled into all kinds of useful new products, like these.
So like I say, that was just an example of Hydro himself that I had just told you about on the last slide, but we go through all of them with each different character, and we've got Shredder and Crystal and Rebar. They're not very innovative names, they are, but they're meant to be very, very literal at the same time, so that the kids understand that rebar eats bimetal cans, and then they turn into rebar that can be used for concrete. And the kids really love this, and I'm actually surprised every time I go into a classroom. We get a question, and I'm shocked, I'm blown away that the kids, how well they understand this and how much they care. So it's a very, very feel-good program. I highly recommend that if you're looking to do more public engagement and education, if you have the chance to start a school program of any type, even if you can just start going to classrooms and talking about waste and recycling in general, I think it's a win every time. Okay, critical concept number 2, incentives. Don't incentives work for all of us? So we know that deposit-based systems work quite well in recycling. I think a lot of us know that in the recycling industry, and many people who are at the conference today and on the call. So those are for consumers that are motivated to get that deposit back, in particular for beverage containers. They paid that deposit on their beverage container and they want to return to them. So that means 85% of containers are returned to an Alberta depot. And that's a basic incentive right there. Just simply get your money back. And when I talked about the audience personas that we actually give them names, and we call that Nickelback Mel's, even though it's not Nickelback, it's a dime. I don't know. But it's just somebody who purely cared about getting their dime back. And that's fine. But there, like I said in the audience slide, that there's that opportunity audience as well. And so what about those that it may not matter to them to get that dime or that quarter back so much? What we've found through some of our marketing surveys is that consumers are actually willing to donate those containers to a cause that might matter most to them. And so in last year, in 2019, what we did was create an event as part of it that went along with our marketing campaigns, and we called it Alberta's Great Prairie Bottle Harvest. And so what it entailed, it was supposed to be, and it was, not-for-profits and community organizations could register for a bunch of free marketing material from us, some help advertising for a bottle drive. And so what we wanted to do was get all of these not-for-profits and community organizations running bottle drives on the same day and coordinating it all from kind of a landing page and promoting it from there. It turned out to be great. It was actually amazing. There was over 100 participants. They all ran bottle drives on the same day. Some of them collected up to a few $1,000s just through their beverage container returns for their particular organization. And so we found in this way, in this type of social marketing, that maybe that audience member who wasn't so keen on going to a depot for whatever reason, maybe they can't get to a depot, you know, they could at least donate their containers. The other thing we did as part of this was put door give all the organizations a door hanger that they could go around in neighborhoods and hang on the door and say, if you leave your containers out for us, we'll just come and pick them up on your front porch. And that actually was one of the better tactics that we found, because then people were like, great, I'll just set my bags on the porch, and then these containers are going to go to such and such an organization that really matters to me. And so what we did then after the event was over, we collected all of these, not all of them, but we collected some stories from some of the participants, and some of them were incredibly touching. We shared them on our digital channels, and to perhaps encourage Albertans to donate their containers on a regular basis, and maybe just find a way that's a little bit easier for them to return their containers to an Alberta depot. Because at the end of the day, whether that person is taking their container back, whether they're donating it to somebody, or however it works, we're still getting the containers back to the Alberta depots. And that's, like I say, my mandate and the mandate of communications and marketing at ABCRC is to just really encourage Albertans to take those containers back whatever way possible. So I've got a quick little video again here. It's about 45 seconds or so of one of our stories. This was it's called Dogs with Wings, and they participated in the bottle drive and raised some funds for their organization. So.
Dogs with Wings is an organization based in Edmonton, Alberta, that provide service dogs, guide dogs, awesome service dogs, companion dogs, and facility dogs to our clients. Dogs with Wings started 20 years ago in 1996. Our mission at Dogs with Wings is to foster independence and integration with Albertans living with disabilities and providing ongoing aftercare. With the money raised from the Great Prairie Bottle Harvest, we will use it in our Digital List campaign. Our list is roughly at 50 clients waiting on the list for a service dog, with one of our dogs costs roughly $40,000 to place and train with our clients. Bottle drives with the Alberta Depot will definitely be continued as part of our fundraising efforts, because they can not only be used by our staff, but through our volunteers and our clients.
So that one was pretty great. That one really, like I said at the beginning, I'm a dog lover, and that one was like, you know what, that was really cool. And so, like I say, what we did was take some of these stories, we shared them on our social channels, on our digital channels, and hoped that it may encourage others to donate as well. So just keep going here. Critical concept number 3. Remove the environmental challenge. And by environmental here, I'm speaking about the environment in which Albertans are when they're away from home, or otherwise known as out-of-home recycling. So when people aren't home, they're more likely to be drinking a single-use container, first of all, and they're more likely to find the easiest way to get rid of the container. They're not like me, who keeps a bag of them in my car if we're gone somewhere, and I will take them either home or to the next beverage container, recycling container that I can find. Probably not unlike most of the people on this call, but we've found, as well as I know some of our affiliates in the other provinces have, that if we provide bins that are specific to beverage container recycling, it does make it easier for those consumers to recycle their beverage containers so they can be returned to a depot. And so we call this our Community Champions program. Actually, I'll go to my next slide here. And the Community Champions program is, I have to go back for a second because my notes are over here. The Community Champions program so if you're a not-for-profit or municipality in Alberta, you can apply for a grant of up to $20,000 that will go toward the purchase of beverage containers from a variety of our approved vendors. So it's all types of vendors too. They have all types of different bins, whether it's outdoor and they need bear-proof bins at a campground, or if it's, indoor bins to collect for donations. There's all kinds that they can order and implement as part of this program. And in return, we ask those successful applicants to report the counts of beverage containers that they receive, just so that we can get an idea of how many containers are out there. And so this is when I want to go to my next slide, that to tell you kind of some of the facts from last year. So we had 124 communities or not-for-profits join. We sent out about just over 3,000 bins and different items. We also include bag liners and that sort of thing. If they're having some sort of event like a kids soccer tournament, and they could just do kind of the pop-up foldable down like wireframes and then just put a bag inside of it. Those are included as well. Collected nearly 4 million containers. I feel like that number is a little bit lower than normal. I think this year we have some more participants, and we'll be able, like I say, these are 2019 numbers. This year we should have some higher numbers. And then the economic benefit from the refunded deposits is like over $400,000. So definitely this Community Champions program has been running for quite some time. It opens up at the beginning of January, typically fills by March or April. And we have found that many of our municipalities and not-for-profits in Alberta have benefited from this, and it does bring in, 4 to 5 million containers a year. So it's successful in engaging and getting the public to bring their containers back if they're out of home. Okay, just tips for a successful campaign, because I know I'm running out of time. I'm coming up to the 25 minutes here. These are kind of a rundown basically of what I've just talked about with everybody. So audience analysis, I think it's crucial. I highly recommend everybody does an audience analysis before you do a campaign to really understand who you're speaking to and to really understand the types of messaging and the types of programming that you should be developing. Education components are key, whether they're education-based campaigns. We're doing one right now this year. It should be hitting the digital channels very, very soon, actually. Of just teaching people about those things that make them say, oh, I didn't know that, that an aluminum can be recycled infinitely, and it's a circular economy item. That when you tell people those types of things, they say, oh, I didn't know that, right? It's really great to recycle aluminum cans, because they can just be reused and put back into recycling cans. And then audience involvement. So this is the events that we did with the campaigns, and even the kids education program as well as a bit of audience involvement, but getting the audience involved in what you're doing and involved in the recycling movement and involved in the programs that you're doing, we have found to be very successful. So that's it for me. Thank you. I actually didn't think I was going to take this long, and then I did. Shocking that I could talk for 25 minutes straight without taking a breath. But I want to thank the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council for having me. It's been so great being here. I want to connect with all of you. This is all my information. I think my slides will be available after, but if they're not, please reach out to me at any of these LinkedIn, Instagram, email, and I'd love to connect and talk further. So thank you again. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the conference, and I hope to see you all in person sometime soon.
Okay, so I feel a little strange thanking Lori, as she will not hear us, but I'm sure you join me in sending her thankful vibes as she is traveling down the river at the moment. So I'm going to suggest that we I was certainly very interested in particular the school's content and the initiative that Lori spoke to with their dedicated program. But perhaps we could save that discussion until after our two other speakers. So I'm now going to introduce Alex Bunker. She has been the National Program Director for Recycle Across America for almost 5 years. And before that, she worked with the U.S. Green Chamber of Commerce. And Alex has a BS in Environmental Studies. So Alex, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Isabel, and thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for joining. As Isabel said, my name is Alex Bunker. I am the National Program Director for Recycle Across America. Also, if anyone notices anything, if there's any audio issues or video issues, don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll try and fix those. But I've been working for Recycle Across America for about 5 years now, and one thing that I do want to share is that I recognize many of you are joining today from Canada, and so while Recycle Across America, the nonprofit, has been focused a lot primarily within North America and the United States, it is what I will be discussing today is absolutely a global issue as well as a global solution. And so we do also operate as Recycle Across the world as well. So I will just kind of dive in because I know that we have a short time frame today to get through our great presenters. So first thing, let me see here. First thing is, I think everyone on the call today recognizes how important recycling is. It impacts so many facets of our society, from the environment to the economy, manufacturing, preventing waste from going into oceans and landfills, and mitigating climate change. And so, but in order for recycling to work and for manufacturers to really be able to reuse those materials, you, me, and 580 million other people in North America, and obviously globally, need to be able to do it properly wherever we go. And unfortunately, the way that recycling is presented to us traditionally is incredibly confusing. And so this screen is really highlighting just a collage of images of how we experience recycling on a day-to-day basis. And I want to ask you all a question to think about. Normally I'd be able to see hands raise up in the air, but how many of you have been confused when approaching a recycling bin? You want to make the right choice, but as you get there, you're not entirely sure what that choice is in order to do it properly. And normally when I ask that question, all hands go up into the air, and that's even in spaces where I'm discussing this with sustainability professionals or people who work in the waste and recycling industry. We still see it as a confusing space. And so whether it is that you approach a bin and maybe it's blue and it has the chasing arrows on it, maybe it's clearly shown what you can and can't put into that bin, maybe it just has a Sharpie written on the plastic bottle, or excuse me, written on the bin to say put your bottles in or your recyclables. Ultimately, what I think that message that we're being sent and that we're sharing with people is that subliminally we're receiving that recycling must not be that important. And we know that to not be the case. And so what we are experiencing as a result is that we as a society are contaminating the recycling. So we are putting trash into the recycling bin at a pretty tremendous rate. And this has really been highlighted in recent years with before the China National Sword Policy, the Green Fence Policy, and even more recently with our international markets closing their doors to our very contaminated recyclables. And so it's definitely an issue that is on everyone's minds, and looking at how we fix this issue. We recognize that the public wants to do the right thing, and we want to be able to help them do that. And so before I dive into a super simple solution, I want to talk about some of the standardizations that we have experienced throughout societies over the years. And the first one is actually, it's a weird machine in the corner there, but it is an anesthesia machine. And so it wasn't all that long ago that we, as a world, were terrified of going into surgery, and it wasn't always because of being fearful of the actual procedure itself, but we were fearful of going under anesthesia. And that was because at the time, there was a really high mortality rate. And it was actually one person who, after their daughter died from a routine root canal from going under anesthesia, did he realize that the dial on those machines were not standardized. And so if you turned it one direction on one machine, it would increase the anesthesia. And if on a different machine you turned it the same direction, it would decrease. And so there was a lot of mortality because of that. So once that standardization happened, the mortality rates decreased just exponentially. And in turn, I think even my generation now, obviously, we are cautious of surgeries, but we don't have that same fear that my parents' generation had. And so that's just one example of a standardization. And then in the essence of time, I'll also utilized road safety signs as another example of a standardization that we experience on a regular basis that we might not even realize we're experiencing. But there was a time when road safety signs were not standardized. And so when you drove from one location to the next, it was really up to that town or that community to be able to communicate the road rules. We recognized the importance of standardizing this for the safety of our community, and thank goodness we did, because could you imagine if it were left up to every building or every community to determine how they should put the stop sign at the end of the road, or to show what the speed limits are. And so I think my point is that I want to take that same logic that we've applied to other standardizations throughout history and apply it to recycling. And so the nonprofit Recycle Across America and Recycle Across the World is doing something very simple. We are working to standardize recycling labels on recycling bins. It is an incredibly simple solution that is highly effective. And a lot of times people ask me, well, they have to change from one location to the next. And so one standardized label won't cut it. And I absolutely agree, but very similar to how road safety signs also have to change, standardized labels can change depending on what can be accepted, depending on those sorting needs of a particular community. And so this is just a screen that shows a variety of different sorting requirements that we see on a pretty regular basis, and how it's presented in a very similar format. They are color-coded and photocentric for better efficacy. And these labels can be utilized on various different bins, and they can, obviously, as I mentioned, they can fit your specific sorting needs and any kind of bin that you might be rolling out or have in your facility, whether it's your community or your business. And so to fix that public confusion that I think so many of us feel at the bin, so many different industries have gotten on board and they are getting involved to join this solution. So cities and states, airports, sports stadiums, businesses, schools, residential programs, they're all starting to display the society-wide standardized labels to really make it easier for society to be able to recycle right. So these are just some different images of the labels in use throughout society, whether it's downtown streets or sports stadiums and arenas. And I wanted to share, in fact, Joanne was asking me to share some of the results of how effective these can be. And one thing that I want to point out is that the results that we've received are really wonderful. They prove that these standardized labels are highly effective at increasing waste diversion while also reducing the amount of contamination that we see over and over, time and time again. We're seeing those results. But what's really interesting about that is these labels are effective in isolated instances, but then they are even that's compounded as society begins to roll out the standardized labels as a standard that we all experience. And so I want to share an example of the Las Vegas school district. So Bank of America was able to donate labels to the school district. And after the implementation of the labels, because of their increased diversion of recyclables, they were able to save $6 million in landfill hauling fees for that school district. And I know Lori was talking about earlier engaging students young, and the standardized labels in schools really help students to be able to recycle easily, knowing what they can and can't put into the bin at a clear visual standard. And another example is US Bank Stadium. They reached about an 83% diversion rate on just a normal game day, a giant stadium. It was actually the the Super Bowl stadium just a few years back, and they were actually the very first Super Bowl after implementing the standardized labels to become a zero waste Super Bowl, which is really exciting. And then a final result that I would love to share with you is actually our first state that joined this movement and this solution. And at a time when the China National Sword Policy had been implemented and so many recycling processors were experiencing increased rejected contaminated truckloads, they actually received an 18% in rejected truckloads after implementing the standardized labels. And in addition to that, with the partnership with us, utilizing the standardized labels, and then also utilizing the Let's Recycle Right PSA campaign and using their mailer materials, they received a SWANA Gold Excellence Award as well. And so if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. I do have their submission for that SWANA Excellence Award. I have been able to work with a ton of incredible corporations over the years, and just we have on our website some testimonials and some results that go beyond what I have shared with you in this presentation today, so don't hesitate to look at that. One of my favorites was from Whole Foods Market in their Northeast region. They implemented the labels and they saw a reduction in their landfill waste, even after they added 3 additional stores to that region. And so really great success stories, like I said, in isolated instances, but the more that we grow this to be critical mass, really the greater the impacts will be. So currently we have about 9 million standardized labels in use throughout the world. We offer it for easy access to people, for businesses to just go online, order them through Office Depot, Office Max, or through our website. We also have a Let's Recycle Right PSA campaign, and so we have both a celebrity-led PSA campaign as well as a Sea Life campaign called our Dear Humans Let's Recycle Right PSA campaign. What's really exciting about this is that last year alone, we received over $6 million in donated ad space for this campaign to help people to be able to understand how important it is to recycle right, and then how important it is for society-wide standardized labels to be part of that solution. And so you'll see Sports Illustrated magazine, their swimsuit edition actually highlighted our Dear Humans, Sonia, the sea lion, which is really exciting. But we're also on digital billboards and on TV commercials. And we have a lot of really wonderful celebrities that have lent their influence to this mission because they understand how important it is, but also they're so hopeful for this being a solution, a very simple, low-hanging fruit solution for anyone to be able to implement to make it easier for people to recycle right wherever they are. And just to kind of add on to some of the things that Lori was talking about, door hangers, magnets, mailers, social media, we have worked with communities that when they implement the society-wide standardized labels, they're also able to maintain consistency with their communication materials as well. Rhode Island was a really great example of that, and they did win that SWANA Excellence Award because of the work that they were doing in that capacity. And so so we're also able to assist with some of that if your offices or your businesses or your communities are looking to implement the society-wide standardized labels from Recycle Across America or Recycle Across the World. So I will wrap up here. I want to say thank you all so much. I think that it really is time for us to apply the same logic that we've used for other critical standardizations that have helped society act on their good intentions to recycling. And so with that, thank you all so much for having me today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I think Isabel might have some for me, but also my contact information is on the screen. You can reach out anytime as well. So thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Isabel.
Thanks, Alex. That was great. And I'm hesitant to take away too much of Derek's time because I know time is running. I see there's been some exchanges on the chat about school programs, and that's great. Thank you to all that have contributed. Maybe one quick question for Alex is, I don't know about Florida or the US, but in Toronto, the #1 contaminant in public space recycling is organic waste.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if your labels tackle that issue, and if you've seen on specifically the organic waste, you've been able to see a reduction.
Yeah, I think that in general, for our labels, they do decrease contamination on a bunch of different levels. So organic waste, as well as dirty diapers and hot dogs and all the things that people put into a bin. And also, we do have society-wide standardized labels for compost, whether it's just food only or compostables. And so if they're paired with that, then it's really helpful to show what can go in each specific container. And then if they're not paired with that, if a program has experienced organic waste as like their main contamination issue, it can also be that on that label or as an additional label, there can be supplemental information that kind of has like a don't circle added to like a Let's Recycle Right label as well. So we have a couple different things. I know that it does help that, but also if it still presents as an issue, or if they want to be extra sure, we have some additional solutions for that as well.
Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to Derek, who I'll introduce, and then we will come back to your questions after Derek's presentation. So Derek supervises the recycling, processing, collection, and provincial stewardship contracts for the city of Regina. He has a BSc in Environmental Studies from Brock University and an MSc in Environmental Studies and Sustainability from Western, both in Ontario here. So over to you, Derek.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that intro. Just gonna... Okay, I've only got one monitor here, so Joanne, does that look all right?
We don't see anything but you right now, Derek. That's getting there. Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
All
perfect.
good?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for having me here. And I'll be speaking to you today about our pilot curbside recycling education program that we did called Cart Smart. We launched it last year, and we do have plans to continue it this year in the fall. And while I did participate on this project, I'm speaking today on behalf of Megan Tungate, who did the organization and planning and overall general management for this successful project. So just want to give a big shout out and congratulations to her for all of her hard work in creating a very successful program. So just before we jump into it, for those who aren't familiar, I just wanted to list some of the City of Regina waste services that we do offer. And just some points to note from this list here. Our household hazardous waste days, we had to cancel them this year, but we did run our June event, which we had 1,100 cars in total. We have a recent yard waste depot, new permanent site, and which we opened in 2019. Last year we had 25,000 total visitors, and we were able to divert 2,500 tons of organic material just from public drop-off, which was great to see. Our Big Blue Bin program, our community depot sort of program for paper and cardboard, we do about 800 to 900 tons annually with that one, and we're looking to expanding our program lists this year. And then just a little fact about well, we do have our upcoming organics pilot program, which was delayed till the fall, unfortunately. And then in total, we have about 67,000 households, just to give you an idea of those numbers there. So jumping into it, over the last several years, we have conducted multiple Blue Cart audits to determine the composition of material in our recycling program, as well as our set-out rates. While we had to skip our 2019 audits and have only completed one audit so far in 2020, we have found very little change in the composition from our selected residential areas. Over the last 3 years, composition studies on residential curbside recycling show that on average, 11% of material in the Blue Cart typically is not recyclable. Despite continuing traditional educational outreach methods, contamination rates have remained roughly static for us since 2016. However, based on our MRF audits in 2020, our contamination is actually starting to trend down this year, which is really great to see. And after speaking with residents at various outreach events, one of the common misconceptions is that a majority of people believe anything with a resin code on it is acceptable in our program. This presents a huge issue with things like plastic film and styrofoam and other materials of that nature. So last year, we created our new program called Cart Smart with 3 goals that we wanted to achieve. We wanted to reduce overall contamination, encourage proper recycling habits, and provide positive reinforcement for those who use the program correctly. Our research and experience in public outreach consistently found that education is one of the best ways to improve residents' behavior. And we wanted to educate residents through direct tips on waste sorting in order to reduce contamination and encourage proper recycling habits, but not through things like fines or other harsh action. We also wanted to positively recognize residents who are using the Blue Cart correctly. Contamination, as you all know, is very costly to the city. It can be very damaging to the MRF as well. And in 2019, our contamination levels, due to contamination levels being higher than our baseline 0 to 5% bracket, so the city pays based on 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. There's a price per ton in each of those contamination brackets. If you compare it to what we actually paid versus what we could have paid under the best case scenario, it cost the city an additional $190,000 just for that contamination. So it is a big issue. So with the Cart Smart program itself, we decided to create 2 teams of 2 individuals. These audits were visual assessments only. We did not pick through any material in the cart. One person did the data recording and inspecting, while the other person either wrote the information on our OOPS tags or placed the good job sticker on the front of the cart, both of which I will show you shortly. 2 people on each team made this process more efficient and worked very well for safety reasons. For this round of data recording, we used an app on our phones through Power Apps, and the addresses were preloaded on there, so we were able to record set-out information and any contaminants through the drop-down menus. And then using Office 365 later, we could then review all of the data once we were back in the office. The 6-week period allowed 2 visits to each cart, as well as some extra room for variables like bad weather and no set-out. Since our program is bi-weekly, we decided to go with the 6-week assessment period. Just not everyone puts their cart out for collection all the time, so we wanted the opportunity to visit each cart twice and then have a little bit of extra time just to get anything that was remaining. In total, there were 2,657 households visited, making up somewhere around 1% within the city. So our good job sticker, this was given when there were no errors in the cart. After analyzing the sticker and tag locations from other municipalities, we decided to place our sticker on the front of the Blue Cart so it was highly visible to everyone in the neighborhood. We felt this would increase interest and raise awareness in the program and get people talking about the sticker's purpose if they were not sure what it represented from a distance. If there were no mistakes in the cart on the first pass, the resident would hit this sticker. Previous iterations of similar programs showed the development of new social norms and essentially instituting bragging rights amongst neighbors through friendly competition. And we were hoping the visibility on the front would help increase the chances of that situation occurring. So our oops tag, we developed two different tags. The yellow tag was for more common errors, and the orange tag was for any hazardous material. If there were mistakes, residents would obviously get one that would list all the errors that were made. The reverse side of the tag, which I'll show you on the next slide, has images of the common mistakes with checkboxes beside them. We also had some blank space at the bottom for any direct messaging or other instructions we thought would be helpful. The tag clearly explained why it was placed on the cart, as well as the purpose of the program, which we included to hopefully minimize the number of service requests that we received. And this turned out to be a good idea, as we didn't receive any increase in service requests while doing this, which was really good. And again, just the focus of this being education and not enforcement. But if there was any HHW spotted in the cart, it would be tagged and turned so that the collectors would not empty it. This was obviously for the safety of all of the waste staff. But we did not turn the carts for anything with a yellow tag. Very few carts had hazardous waste in them, which was good to see. 2 weeks later, on the next collection day, carts that received a tag were then reassessed to see if there were any improvements. We placed the tag on the back handle of the cart, as you can see from the image, instead of using something like a door hanger. And our rationale for this was that we typically found that the person who put the cart out is likely to bring it back. So we thought it would increase the chances of it being noticed. A door hanger may be removed by someone else in the household and could be forgotten. So that's why we went with that method. We also found the blank space at the back for targeted messages specific to each incident was very helpful for anything else that we noticed. So on the back here, we chose to put the most common contaminants that we had been seeing at the MRF. On the left, you can see we have stretchy and crinkly plastics, food and yard waste, paper cups, and bagged recyclables. And then we have that other category as well if we needed to write a customizable message. On the hazardous tag, you can see the pressurized containers, sharps, light bulbs, and batteries. And for anyone who wants a close-up of any of these, as well as the report, so the sticker or the tags in the file section, they're all there. So if you'd like to see a PDF, feel free to download it. These tags were also designed in-house between us and our communications team, so it was all done by us. So results. We found that during this pilot, the set-out rate was roughly consistent with our previous curbside audits that I've mentioned before. Upon initial assessment, we found that 28% of the sample are already doing a good job with the program and received a sticker on the first pass. And based on a little bit of education, there was a huge jump in compliance to 42%. And then at the end of the program, overall, 54% were compliant or improved. Improved meaning that they fixed, if they got a tag, they fixed their first mistake, but made a new one. They were counted as improved in our program here. And as I mentioned, very few carts had hazardous waste, which was really good to see. But throughout the pilot, 72% got an oops tag total, whether that was on the first, second, or even third visit. While we do receive all the hazardous material that we do put on our tag at the MRF, the most common items are typically helium tanks, large white propane tanks, and other smaller camping stove, those green camping stove tanks. And then 17% made the same mistake twice, which could suggest needing an extra layer of education, or failing that in the future, it could mean looking into enforcement programs, but we don't have any plans right now for that. Breaking down the results even further, from this chart, our two biggest contaminants were these stretchy and crinkly plastics. Stretchy being items like grocery bags, bread bags, or equivalent. Crinkly plastic being chip bags, cereal bags, or equivalent items like that. And from this list, just some other categories aren't really self-explanatory. Miscellaneous plastic we categorize as anything numbers 1 to 7, bulky, rigid, like Tupperware, coat hangers, that sort of thing. Our other category would be any contaminants not described above, really random things, dryer sheets, furnace filters, candles, that sort of thing. And then we have a small items category there for things like bottle caps. We found that 63% of blue carts had a type of plastic as an error. Since this was so common, we're working on developing a campaign with a focus on digital marketing around that. We recently had some social media posts along with an image of a blue cart contents, getting residents to try and identify what the mistakes were on Facebook, and that received some really, really good attention. So we're going to keep going with that. So what we learned in total, it proved to be a very valuable education tactic, as most residents are willing to change their behavior. The conversations we had with residents were mostly positive, and it provided a great opportunity to discuss common mistakes, as well as other information about the program, like where material goes once it's sorted. There were several occasions where residents had chased after us, both on foot and in their cars, to discuss what we were doing out there. So that was kind of interesting to see. And overall, we had about 150 or so conversations with residents while we were out in that field. For data collection, this time we're going to be using ArcGIS. We had a few technical issues with our app. Would freeze quite a bit and would get really annoying. We have to resort to manually writing things down every once in a while. So we're going to be using that program going forward. The program identified that residents struggle with correctly recycling plastic and keeping materials loose in the cart. So developing these key insights into future messaging for our new campaigns would be very valuable. Alleys versus street collection was front street collection was a big one. It's very difficult to navigate alleys since many people leave their carts out and they can get scattered or blown away or whatever it might be. And not many properties have addresses listed from the rear. So in a lot of cases, we actually had to count where we were on the block just in order to identify it properly. So that was kind of tricky. Households requiring further education, it'd be beneficial to address those households which did not correct the issues from the cart tagging, and this can be done by a number of means, either an extra layer of education by completing an additional visit, or doing door knocking, leaving other educational materials there as well. But overall, most residents were positive about the whole program, despite some negative social media feedback that we had at the time. We didn't lose any days to storms or bad weather, and our collector was really good with leaving the carts alone in our selected areas. So that was really good as well. So that was the presentation. So if there's time for any questions, I'd be happy to take some.
Thank you so much, Derek. That was great. And so I believe we're officially at time, but I'm going to hope that participants are interested in sticking around for just a few more minutes. There was a question that I believe is both to Alex and Derek from Augustina. She's asking, what about the immigrant communities, students, newcomers to Canada, in terms of creating awareness and education? Are there programs for these groups or the organization that support them? For instance, Regina Open Door.
Sorry, your audio is a little muffled there. I can't quite hear you.
Oh, okay. Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
So I was just reading the question from Augustina in the chat. Perhaps you've seen it. Regarding the immigrant communities, the newcomers to Canada, how can we support increasing their awareness?
With that, we looked at, that's something we're going to be assessing going forward. We tried to make our tags as simple as possible. That was one of the points with what we left behind, and that goes for a lot of our education materials as well. Just something that's, if English is not your first language, a lot of images, colors associated, like red, green, for certain things. We, used an orange for our hazardous waste tag. So that's something that we'll be further assessing going forward. But for this round, we just wanted to make sure that the images there were as clear as possible.
Thank you. And I should say, if you'd like your mic turned on, please just mention this in the chat box so that Joanne can turn your mic on and you can ask your question directly. In the meantime, there was also a question from Richard Beck, I think directed to Derek as well. What are the limitations to accepting or being to process all items with a recycling code? It's confusing for the public to know exactly what's in or out.
So what are the limitations to accepting it in the program? Is that?
Yes.
So, I mean, like the recycling program, the other thing that the public generally isn't aware of is in order for something in most curbside programs to be recyclable, there has to be an end market for it. There has to be a buyer for that product. It has to be able to go somewhere. So plastic film is a recyclable item. Styrofoam is a recyclable item, but is there someone here who can make use of that item to have, right? Like we can take it at our MRF potentially, but if we don't have anywhere to put it, if we can't do anything with it, then it's a huge limitation. There has to be a buyer for that material. So, I mean, film also, there's a few other issues with that. It gets wrapped around the star screens and other the different components of the MRF there. You can have a sort of a suction hood for that material to take it, but it still gets in other places. And there have been programs that have removed items like that just because of the issues it creates at the recycling center, as well as the market just simply disappearing for it. So it has to be easily collected and sorted, but then there also has to be the market for it. So that's a big thing there.
Thank you. Joanne, I don't see anyone who's asked to ask their question directly. Oh, I do see a question for Alex. From Merv, does your labeling system imply a multi-stream recycling system, or can it work as well with single stream?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it absolutely can work in both capacities or in a combination of different sorting requirements for your community. So we have worked with single stream communities as well, and at least for specifically the United States, we see the single stream communities to be more rural communities, and then the multi-stream communities to be typically, it was a big trend, at least for the United States, for quite a number of years, and so we have a lot of single stream communities and then multi-stream. I think I was switching those up, but essentially, to answer your question in brief, is absolutely, we've worked with single stream communities as well as multi-stream communities quite a bit. We have different labels for any sort of sorting requirement really necessary that we've seen so far.
Okay, thank you. I think we've gone through, there was a question from Krista, and I'm not entirely sure that relates to your program, Alex, but I think it does. It says the stickers file only has one sticker and several blank pages. Are there supposed to be more? Or perhaps that's...
I had submitted the files, so the sticker, the yellow tag, and the orange tag should all be their own file. Is there?
Oh, okay.
There should be 3 or 4 files there.
Okay.
So these are in the file section in this session on the right-hand side at the top.
Oh, okay. I see. And maybe one last question. There's a follow-up from Augustina asking if municipalities, that it would be great if municipalities could essentially harmonize their individual recycling programs. But I'm curious, I understood that in Saskatchewan with the MMSW, the Stewardship Program for Packaging and Paper, my understanding was that that program is a provincial one, Is it not the case that most municipalities do collect the materials that MMSW has established as the common list of materials?
This is Joanne. I'm going to answer that one for you. In Saskatchewan, the multi-material program is pays 75% up to 75% of the cost and does not prescribe to the municipalities what materials they collect yet. So if it were 100% producer responsibility like it is in British Columbia, where they are in charge and they can say these are the products included in the program, then they could do that. Right now, they've left it up to the municipalities to decide what materials they collect. So hopefully we'll get there, and that will certainly help. If there's one program sort of prescribing what happens for the whole province, that'll make it a lot easier.
Yes, agree. And I can tell you in Ontario, we're in the process of transitioning to this harmonized common collection system by 2022. Okay, so on that note, I think I will thank warmly our speakers and wish everyone a good afternoon, and thank you very much for your feedback and participation.